Let's make some sweet potato gnocchi with a spinach and sun-dried tomato sauce. Welcome back to the Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show, where we make plant-based cooking easy. I'm Jill, and today we're going to make these delicious sweet potato gnocchi, and we're going to make them in a sun-dried tomato and spinach sauce. Super easy and quick. You know, you think gnocchi is something really complicated, but it's actually very simple. But we're going to start with our sauce first. So I've already got my pan heated here. And we're going to start with 2 cloves of garlic that I diced up really fine. And I'm going to put just a little bit of my vegetable broth in there just so it doesn't burn in the pan. Just to kind of cook a little bit of the raw out of it before we add our other ingredients. But that only really just takes a couple minutes because it's going to be cooking in the sauce for the remainder of the time anyway. That will cook the rest of it out of there. But just get some of that initial rawness out of it. Okay, then I've got 1/4 cup of sun-dried tomato that I diced really small. And these ones do have a bit of salt in it, so we're not going to add any salt to the sauce because there's plenty of salt that comes from those tomatoes. These are just dried just with the salt, but you could get the ones in the little jars that have the oil, but I would suggest rinsing that oil off before you put it in here. Then I have 1/2 cup of chopped basil, 2 teaspoons of tahini. That's going to give you a really nice whole food fat, and it's going to make it just slightly creamy. I add a little bit more of my vegetable broth here. This is 1.5 cups of vegetable broth. I'm not going to add it all yet. I'm just going to simmer these a little bit. And while this is cooking, you want to get your pot of water for your gnocchi boiling on the stove. So that is preheating, just so that when we get our gnocchi made, they're ready to go right in that pot. Okay, now we're going to add our spinach. This is 2 cups of spinach. The rest of the vegetable broth. And then I've got 1/2 cup of soy milk, but we're going to wait till this cooks down a bit and add it at the end, kind of just to make it a little bit more creamy. All right, so we're just going to let this cook for a little while and simmer while we're doing our sweet potato gnocchi. So I'm going to clear this out and get our gnocchi ingredients. Okay, so now we have our gnocchi ingredients. So I've got 1 cup of mashed sweet potato. This is a white sweet potato, but you could use orange sweet potato or even purple sweet potato. They're all delicious. And I've got 1 cup of oat flour, and I'm just going to start with about 3/4 cup first, just to make sure, because if your sweet potato is a little bit dry, then the whole cup could possibly be too much flour. Oops, and then a teaspoon of low sodium tamari. And I'm using my pastry cutter here just to get it incorporated together. But you could use a fork, or even just mixing it up is fine. Looks like I'm probably gonna need almost all of this flour because my sweet potato is very, very moist. And you don't want to over mix this. It's not like regular gnocchi where you use glutinous flour, and if you overwork a glutinous flour, it will get really, the gnocchi won't be soft and pillowy. So the oat flour doesn't really do that as much, but you still don't want to overwork them. All right, I'm just going to put the rest in there. Okay, and the rest I'm just going to kind of gently make it into a ball with my hands. Make sure I get all of that in there. These gnocchi are so good, so light and fluffy. They are just delicious. So I'm just going to do it with my hands, the remaining, just to get it together. And then you can either do this on a clean countertop. I'm going to move over and do it on my cutting board. I'm going to roll it out and make the little gnocchi. And because these are made with oat flour, it's a little, and sweet potato, they're a little bit heavier than a typical gnocchi. So we're gonna make them just a little bit smaller than you would a normal gnocchi batter, because they tend to be a little bit more heavy because there's all that starch in there. All right, I'm gonna do it in multiple rolls here. So you just wanna roll it out to about 1/2 inch, like that. And then all you're gonna do, you're just gonna cut with a knife, a nice sharp knife, just little chunks. And you try to make them an even size. And if you wanna get really fancy, if you have one of the little gnocchi rollers that rolls the little lines on it, or you can use a fork and just roll it. I'm just gonna make these just plain Jane gnocchis. Okay, I'm gonna finish rolling these out and cutting the rest, and then I'll bring my boiling water over. While we're waiting for that, I'd like to share some background on our show. The Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show is crowd-funded, which means these free weekly recipe videos, along with our entire catalog of free printable recipes on our website, plantbasedcookingshow.com, and our Plant-Based Cooking Made Easy cookbook series, are all made possible in part by the generous patronage of our supporting membership community. So if you love our recipes, I invite you to join us on our mission to make plant-based cooking easy, and follow the link in the description to become a supporting member today. There's no denying the plant-based diet is a nutrient powerhouse, but did you know there are a handful of hard-to-get nutrients even well-crafted diets are often lacking? The latest research suggests that complementing your diet with a few specific vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s will help boost your energy and keep you thriving for the long term. That's why my daily health routine includes Complement Essential. Complement Essential contains the 8 critical nutrients lacking from most plant-based diets in dosages optimized specifically for us. As a special discount for our viewers, just use code PLANTBASEDEASY at checkout to save 15% off of your order. Okay, now that we have all of our gnocchi cut, our water is boiling, we're gonna put about half of them in at a time. You don't wanna put the whole bunch in at the same time because they kind of need room to move around a little bit. So we're just gonna plop some of them in there. And kind of the rule of thumb with gnocchi is once they start floating, then wait 30 seconds and then pull them out. All right, so we're just waiting. Okay, the first batch is done. So I'm gonna use a slotted spoon just so all that liquid can drain off. Put them right in the sauce. And the sauce, at this point, still looks a little bit water or liquidy, but because we're adding these gnocchi and they have oats in them and sweet potato, which is all starch, it's gonna help thicken that sauce a little bit. All right, and go the next ones. Okay, the next batch is done, so we're gonna put it back into the sauce here. And then if you want, if your sauce is still looking a little bit thin, you can just put it back on the burner just for a few minutes just to kind of thicken that sauce. I'm just gonna lightly toss them here. I don't want to, you gotta be gentle with your gnocchi. You don't want them falling apart, all right? So if you wanna come in and take a closer look to what this looks like finished, oh, it smells so amazing. And I'm gonna let this cool for a few minutes and then I'll meet you at the table for a taste. All right, let's dig in. My mouth is watering. So good. Come on back next week for another great recipe.